Welcome to Tales TV, where every story has a soul. Dive into a world full of emotions, suspense, love, and lessons. Our channel brings you short films, dramatic narrations, and fictional tales that will stay with you. Subscribe now to experience storytelling that connects, moves, and mesmerizes.
Even speaking a word, his fingers reached for the same pencil, the same sketch pad. And somehow, her face was already waiting. That it wasn't obsession. It was something else. Something he couldn't explain. He never dreamed of her. He never saw her in a crowd. Yet every morning, without fail, her image arrived, like a memory from a life he hadn't lived. Her eyes weren't perfect. They tilted just slightly downward, as if she carried 1,000 quiet thoughts behind them. Her mouth, half a smile, half a secret. Long hair, always pulled behind one ear. It was always the same face. The same girl, and he had no idea who she was. Over the years, he'd filled over 24 sketchbooks. Not with different portraits. Just different versions of her. Her laughing. Her crying. Her looking away. Her looking straight at him. But he had never met her. Not once. His friends thought it was some artistic phase. "You're inventing your dream girl," one said. "Maybe she's your future wife," another laughed, but the artist never responded. He couldn't explain it. How do you tell someone that a stranger feels more real than anyone you've ever loved? He didn't even know her name. And yet, her absence weighed heavier than any presence. Sometimes, when he was out, at a bookstore, or in a cafe, he'd catch himself scanning every face. Hoping. Searching. Wanting to see the impossible point. One day, during a small gallery showing, he displayed one of his sketches, one of her, eyes closed, as if listening to something far away. A visitor stopped and stared at the drawing longer than anyone else. She turned to him and said softly, "She looks so familiar, like someone I used to know." And then she walked away. He didn't sleep that night. Then came the day everything changed. It was raining, one of those soft, steady rains that feels more like silence than water. He hadn't brought an umbrella. He didn't care. The city was gray and slow. His sketchpad was in his bag. He hadn't drawn her that morning. He'd woken up empty. He turned the corner onto a quiet street, and stopped cold. She was there, walking in the opposite direction. No umbrella. Hair tied behind one ear. Eyes tilted downward. It was her, not just someone who looked like her. She looked up, their eyes met for a fraction of a second, and in that second, something unspeakable passed between them. Not just recognition, something deeper. Something older. Like their souls had been waiting for that glance for centuries, but just as quickly as it came, she looked away and continued walking. He ran after her. "Wait," he called out, but she didn't stop. He turned the corner. She'd vanished around, but the street was empty. No footsteps. No open doors. Just the sound of rain and his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. He searched every nearby street. Every alley. Nothing. Eventually, drenched and breathless, he made his way back home. He sat in his studio, water dripping onto the floor. He didn't reach for his sketchpad. He couldn't. He just stared at the wall, at all the faces of the girl he had never met, until now. He whispered to the silence, "Who are you?" There was no answer. Just the hum of city life outside his window. That night, he didn't sleep. The next morning, he woke up to a faint sound, paper sliding against wood. He got up, shuffled toward the door, and there, tucked under it, was a folded note. He unfolded it with trembling hands. There were only 4 words, "I see you too." And beneath the words, a sketch of him, drawn with the same lines. The same strokes. The same style he used when drawing her. Only, this wasn't his hand. It was hers. He stared at it for a long time. Not just the drawing, but the idea. She had been seeing him too, somewhere out there. She had been sketching him. She wasn't just a dream. She was real. And she was looking for him too, and suddenly, everything, every morning he had ever woken up to draw her, every moment of longing. He stared at her sketch of him for hours, every line felt like a touch. Every shadow a secret. She had drawn him the way no one ever had, not just what he looked like, but what he felt like. Somehow, she had captured the weight in his eyes. The quiet ache in his smile. The loneliness behind the stillness. She knew him. Without ever meeting him, she knew him, and that changed everything. The next morning, he walked the streets where he'd seen her. He returned to the cafe. The corner bookstore. The rain-slicked sidewalk where their eyes had met. But there was no sign of her. He waited for days, nothing. Then, another note slipped under his door in the dead of night. No words this time. Just a sketch. A place. A park bench under a large willow tree, next to a red sculpture he recognized from a plaza on the east side of the city. She was calling him. He went. Background audio fades into sounds of wind and faint birdsong. It was quiet. The wind carried faint music from a street performer nearby. And there, on the bench, was another note, folded neatly. No envelope. Just his name, written in the same handwriting as before. You always draw me with sadness in my eyes. I wonder if that's how you see me, or how you feel. He sat there, heart pounding. She had been watching. Close enough to leave the note, but not close enough to be seen. Or maybe, she wanted it that way. So, he left a sketch and returned. A picture of her, smiling, just once, for the first time, he had drawn her with joy. No sorrow in her eyes. No haunting past. Just light. He folded it gently, placed it on the bench, and walked away. Every day for the next week, he came back. And every day, a new sketch waited for him. Of him. At a bookstore. In the rain. Laughing once, by a food truck, she was watching him live, and slowly, piece by piece, they were falling in love, without speaking, without touching, only through pencil and paper. They were learning each other, soft violin layers in, tender and dreamy. Then one morning, something changed. He opened his door, expecting another note, but this time, there was an address, and one sentence. If you're ready, come find me. He stared at the paper. His breath caught. Was this real? Would she be there? The address led to a small art studio on the edge of town. A converted attic above a quiet flower shop. The windows were stained with years of sun, and the door creaked as he pushed it open. The air smelled of paper, and something else, lavender. Sketches lined the walls, of him, and in the middle of the room, was her. She turned around slowly. No words, just that same soft, unreadable smile he had drawn 100 times, but this time, it was real. They stood in silence. Time didn't exist. Neither did sound. Just the hum between them, the knowing. Finally, she spoke. I was starting to think you'd only ever love the version of me in your head. He smiled. I didn't know you were real. She stepped closer. I didn't either. Until I saw you. And then, they embraced. Not like strangers meeting for the first time. But like a reunion after lifetimes apart. All the sketches. All the mornings. All the waiting. It had led here. To her. To him. To the moment where fiction became real, and love stepped out from between the lines. They didn't need to say much more. They already knew everything about each other. After all, they had spent years drawing each other's souls.